Good morning. Buongiorno a tutti. I'm doubly sorry not to speak Italian and not to be with you in Rome today. But I'm glad to address an Italian audience because Italy is expected to be the EU country that will benefit most of the EU funding for connectivity infrastructure. So for us, it will be a perfect trial ground to see what works, what doesn't work, and to fine-tune our EU connectivity strategy. Before diving into the strategic aspect, I would like to make a very short flashback on the history of connectivity objective setting in Europe. Next slide, please. You see that we have set targets in Europe since the year 2000, where we set a target in 2010 to have broadband penetration at 30%, and broadband was very modest target because it was even not the 30 megabits per second that we understand today. Then in 2010, for the first time, we had quantitative objectives for fixed. So basically broadband for all at 30 megabits and then 50% subscription to advanced internet connection at 100 megabits and above. But these were voluntary targets. So member states were not bound to these objectives. But now we have a fundamental change, and we don't come back to the digital decade, but we have these targets for 2030, which are enshrined in legislation and with a mechanism that will allow us to make it most probably a reality and at the same speed in all member states. So the full coverage of fiber and the full coverage of the populated area with 5G. You see that 5G finally from a fundamentally connectivity from an internal market issue in the early 2000s has become now a political subject and even a geopolitical subject if you include sovereignty aspect and cybersecurity. Now I'll move on to the next slide where I'd like to share with you to illustrate the magnitude of the investment challenge that we face, because investment is really the nerve, the core of the issue here. We have conducted a study to understand the investment gap, and it's not yet published, but the results are already available. And you see that two large figures in the center of the slide. You see 114 billion for fixed or for completing the fiber infrastructure is needed, and about 60 billion for the mobile infrastructure. These are the investments that are still needed from now on to 2030, because of course we already have covered some ground with past investments. Now these are large figures, and you see in total you should end up at around 170 to 180 billion as investment needs in Europe, of which probably 30 to 40, at least 30 billion will be covered by public funding. So this is a higher rate than in the past because we have to cover new types of market failures. Now, this may seem a very high number, but if you think it's less than 500 euro per adult population in Europe between now and 2030, so it should be feasible. Now, how are we going to address these huge investment needs? You have the sources on the left and in the bottom, on the row in the bottom. If we start by the bottom, look at private investments in a range there. That's where 85% of the investment will come, should come anyway. But the 15% remaining are very important, as I said, because they will address market failures. On the bottom line, you see instruments that you know, like, of course, member states will invest themselves, as well as the famous recovery fund, of which Italy, I must say, is a winner also in connectivity, because out of the 13 billion earmarked for connectivity in Europe in the recovery fund, more than 2 billion are expected to be invested in Italy. So, and also on the left side, you have then the centrally managed EU funding mechanism. Before the slide before, please. This will be the last slide, but could you go back to the slide before, where you see the most targeted instrument is probably Connecting Europe Facility, where there the focus will be on funding the highway system and the railway system with 5G coverage, because these are typically market failure areas, because the business models will come very much later. And we have 2 billion for doing that. We have Invest EU to help countries where the cost of capital is high to still be able to invest at decent rates. And then you have the regional fundings. So you have a full range of instruments, and all this can be, we say that, elegantly blended also. So in some cases it could be a very complex arrangement. That's also one of the challenges, is to have the financial engineering to put that in motion. Now my last slide is, please, next, is a short summary of what we are doing at the moment. So we are doing a lot of things, but what is on the short term relevant for you to know is that we are still working on the state aid guidelines. It's very important. The new guidelines should be issued by the end of the year, so very soon, and you will see a new doctrine for step change. It's very important for 5G because it was already visible, I think, in June, when the Commission has authorized the recovery investment for Italy in the recovery fund. For the first time, the Commission has authorized subsidy state aid, not only for the passive infrastructure, but also for active elements of 5G in underserved areas, still in market failure area. But this was the first time the Commission was clearing such kind of active equipment investment, and this will be now enshrined in the doctrine, so the step change will be understood in a broader way. Then we have also the famous cost reduction directive that is taken too long to revise, but no, we are ready, and you will see that it will be mainly about 5G, so base station permits, about access to public property, also to improve coverage of 5G. So that will be, I think, a very important element. Then we also envisage a new radio spectrum policy program to be announced third quarter of next year. That's a bit to palliate the deficiencies of the Article 52 that Luc has mentioned, to go a bit further in the coordination of spectrum assignments and also new spectrum, so that keep that on your radar. And finally, of course, we try to mobilize new actors for investing in connectivity infrastructure. And as you know, our Commissioner, Thierry Breton, and also Executive Vice President Vestager have launched now the debate, have agreed to launch a debate about the future of telecom, understand the structural changes in the market, and we'll start with a public consultation, so that will include, but not only about the so-called fair share challenge. So that will also be on the short term something important to follow. I don't mention two other things, which is just a name, but of course energy is also an important topic, but that's maybe a bit more long term, where we will work on code of conduct to reduce the footprint of networks, the carbon footprint networks in Europe. And also the trade negotiations, like the EU-US trade negotiations, may also have an impact on investment in Europe. So that's it. Let me stress again that Italy is definitely a pioneer in terms of the new approach for public funding of connectivity infrastructure. So, and we are very keen on benefiting from your experience. And again, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this event.
Thank you very much. We hope next time to see you here in Rome. Thank you.
I hope so too.